Now, here's Mike and Mike.
We're back and better than ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, whatever poet it is you choose to study at home.
I was going to say, I've seen all his films. That's not the right person.
Who were you thinking
I'm
of?
just joking.
Were you thinking of Ezekiel Elliott?
No, I'm just
not sure which Elliott.
T.S. Elliott.
You had in mind there. Our buddy Ryen Russillo is back with us. It's always a delight to see him. You hear him coast to coast every weekday afternoon here on ESPN Radio. How are you, Ryen?
I'm good, guys. Good to see you.
We've got a bunch of stuff for you today.
Yeah, we do.
And I want to start with the hoops. There's obviously a bunch of football that we're in the midst of now, but people, I think, associate you first and foremost on this show with the basketball. And let's start with Dwayne Wade. We had Woj earlier this morning saying that after tomorrow, these decisions can start to get made. I think the words he used were what did he say, a prohibitive favorite or something like that. Front runner in the process right now in his mind are the Cleveland Cavaliers for D. Wade. What are you hearing?
Yeah, talking to teams last night, one call this morning before I came in, I would be shocked if Wade's not on the Cavs. I think it makes all the sense in the world. They actually need him. But the most important thing for Dwayne Wade is I think the team that brings him in has to know what they're signing up for. And that is that you're going to have to, not that he can't play a full season, but it's better for Wade to kind of go at his own pace. And he did that in Miami. And when he got to Chicago, it was like, okay, you know, what do we sign up for here? With Cleveland, I think Cleveland as a whole will kind of coast in the regular season. I don't think they're going to care about seeding at all. They're not going to get Isaiah back probably towards the end of the calendar year, maybe at the turn of the year. And with Wade, he can plug right in and start now if he wants to. But because of his relationship with LeBron and their runs together in Miami, when Wade decides, you know, I don't want to play 82, I'll play 60, it's a perfect fit. And I think everybody there would be on the same page where, look, he would rest in San Antonio. OKC has room for him with their two-guard depth. But I just think it's a little different. His relationship with LeBron, the way these guys, you get a little bit older too. I think guys go, you know what? I just want to be around guys that I like, that are my friends, and they're close enough that I think they end up pulling this off.
So that seems to be the place he's going to be. Let's put him there. What does that do for them against, here we go, all the way to the finals against Golden State?
Yeah, all of these moves it really feels like an arms race where I'm not knocking any of the GMs, but it's just if you're the Thunder, you go, okay, we got Paul George. Everybody would do that deal in a second. And then you go, okay, is Melo a perfect fit? You know, he doesn't really want to be a power forward. George doesn't want to be a power forward. Yeah. They have the two guys from the Eastern Conference that would probably be better suited in today's game playing the four that both still want to be threes. And yet you just go, who cares? I have to find a way to keep up with Golden State's offense. And to suggest that any of these moves add up to some piece where I go, okay, I could see one of these teams getting the Warriors in 7 games, that's completely diminishing how amazing the Warriors are and how dominant they are. So as I've said numerous times on the show before, there just aren't any real tangible basketball rosters that can be put together that I think is beating a healthy Warriors. So, yes, Cleveland can still win the East. They could win it without Wade. I can't wait to see what the Celtics look like here. But none of this stuff ever makes me go, oh, wait a minute. There's some matchup stuff there now where I think they could get the Warriors.
What I was trying to find is a place that the Warriors may have to sweat in the West. It's one thing to say, yeah, they'll get to the East and we'll see what Cleveland can do. We understand Cleveland has been trying to use, I like the term arms race, because that is what it feels like. I was sort of thinking to myself, if you do put him on Oklahoma City and you just keep all those guys healthy, and that's a big if, not only with Wade, I think, but with Carmelo also. But if you have those guys healthy at the end, you have some other pieces. You have a little rim protection there. You got some guys who can run around on the wing a little bit. Do they make it interesting with Golden State, do you think?
Well, you'd have the Paul George piece that would be able to go at Durant, which is why Cleveland wanted him so bad. Not because he's really good, but you go, this is just going to save LeBron. I think you'll see with Jay Crowder this year that Jay Crowder is going to be playing those really great, skilled perimeter guys that are bigger. And if Cleveland gets to the finals against the Warriors again, you could see Jay Crowder in a big Durant moment there, but still Durant has so much height on him that you'd expect LeBron to get him a few times. So, you know, as I look at who the Thunder are defensively, George is the guy. I don't think Wade comes in today and brings you anything. And obviously that would be a significant drop-off from where Andre Robertson is. I mean, he is an outstanding defense. He's so good defensively, he's actually still out on the court because offensively it's not really a great side of the court for him. So when I look at the West, you know, the Rockets are this team in the beginning of that Spurs series, and you kind of felt this as you'd watch them. You go, you know, I got to take them a little bit more seriously. Their defense was passable, and then you add Chris Paul, so then you have to start doing the math on what do Harden and Paul both look like. In a series, when it could go right with their style of play, they're really, really scary. but then it completely falls apart against San Antonio. Harden has a rep damaging type of game to close out that Spurs series. Like, I'm talking, he needs to have a really deep run to kind of redeem himself. Not that he's not a star, not that he's not awesome, but that was an awful way to go out. So do they have enough pieces, or can they hit shots enough in 4 games out of 7 to even threaten the Warriors? Like, that still feels like the thing, because it's San Antonio, which likely isn't going to be as great as Kawhi is. To say that they're going to be better this year than they were last year seems like a reach, even though I love DeJounte Murray. And then the rest of it's kind of open. I mean, the top 4, you know it's OKC, you know it's Houston, you know it's San Antonio. Like, I have a hard time even locking in. Minnesota, you would think, has to be that 5th team, but Minnesota was so bad defensively. Karl Anthony Towns arguably is the worst defensive player at his position, and the same could be said for Andrew Wiggins. Like, Wiggins is not even just bad at his position. He's overall one of the worst defensive players, which doesn't make any sense because of his skills. And coming out of Kansas, you thought, okay, at the very least, he'll be really competitive defensively. You add Butler, who's great on defense. You add Taj, who's really good as well. They have to be, I mean, there's no way they can be as bad as they were defensively. But to plug them in and start talking about the Warriors, we're talking about one of the great rosters we've ever seen in the history of the league. It's just hard for me to go, you know what, these guys can get them.
As far as all the moves that were made, and you know all the moves, and we've spouted off all the moves, it was one of our fill-in-the-blank questions this morning. Which move to you will be the most impactful to their team?
It's really 2. The fact that Danny Ainge, in less than 2 seasons, a calendar year, adds Horford in free agency and then is able to add Gordon Hayward, and then you trade for Kyrie. I'll never understand it. Maybe it's because it was Ainge and people my age or older didn't like him as a player. Maybe it's an anti-Celtics thing. But what Ainge did with that roster in that amount of time is impossible. Now, granted, Pat Riley pulled the all-time great free agent summer when he grabbed Bosh and got Wade to work it out, and then obviously LeBron. But that's incredible. And that was always Ainge's thing. When I was up in Boston, he was really great to me in explaining that we have Paul Pierce. Okay, that's back before they'd won the title in 08. And everybody wants me to trade Paul Pierce. Paul Pierce is still in his prime. As soon as you trade a guy like Paul Pierce, you want somebody like Paul Pierce. So why do I want to trade Pierce and lose the trade? I want Pierce to be in place so I can add to him. So, yeah, Horford's completely overpaid, but that's free agency, and he's somebody that other players in the league like. And you go, you know what? Maybe I can go there now. So now you have Gordon Hayward, now you have Horford, and Kyrie starts thinking, now I want to go there. So that is the thing that Ainge did and the Celtics did that I think is really important to remember when teams have one really great player, but they know they're not good yet. You're probably better off keeping him because you're going to lose that trade. And the fact that they've pulled this off and could very well win the East, at least on paper, in the standings. I don't know how it's going to play. It's just so tough going up against LeBron. That is an incredible. Like, I don't want to hear it anymore from the anti-Ainge people because you're just wrong.
Mike and Mike, Ryen Russillo in with our studio here talking basketball. I'm looking at Sam Presti, and I'm thinking this is a guy who's like, he's like on the ship that's sinking, and he's hanging on for dear life. And he has managed over the course of the last 2 months to turn Victor Oladipo, Doug McDermott, Enes Kanter, a second-round pick, and Arvydas Sabonis' son into, and I keep saying that, and I apologize, but I can't remember his first name.
Right.
What is it?
Domus is whatever.
Okay.
Right.
Into Paul George and Carmelo Anthony. That's about as good as it gets by NBA standards, and made them, at minimum, an extremely relevant, exciting, and interesting team, and maybe at maximum a legitimate contender. But here's my question.
Sure.
What are they a year from now? We had Woj talking about how if you somehow tried to keep this thing together, their payroll plus luxury tax would be $300 million next year. That's obviously not happening. Carmelo is going to opt in, according to Woj, and it makes sense because he has $28 million sitting there, and no one's giving him that, I don't think, as a free agent. Russell Westbrook, let's see what his future is. Paul George, we all know he can do what he wants. So what's your best guess right now on how they play that in Oklahoma City?
It all depends on Russ, right? And how scary is this? Think about what these NBA players are doing now. They're staring at $200 million guarantee money, and they're like, I'm good. I'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Like, think about that. You have that contract's waiting for you. You're like, I'm good. We'll see what happens. Now, maybe he signs the extension. He says he loves it there, but players have said that before. So if Russ stays, then it completely changes the conversation. I'm not even remotely convinced that Paul George is staying there past this year. Nobody believes that around the league, and I don't know if he would stay if Russ stayed. The Kanter thing was smart because he was paid a ton of money, and honestly, you had to bench Kanter against certain series in the playoffs. You just couldn't even have him out there, so it wasn't going to make any sense there. But yeah, if Russ stays, then this is a completely different conversation. You go, okay, piece here, piece there. You're adding these things. Like, you're adding the guys like Dwayne Wade. I mean, next offseason is going to be insane. They wouldn't have the flexibility to add any of those pieces. But Presti's pulled some of this stuff off before. So I guess I'm not giving you a definitive answer here, Greeny.
My question, though, is because you are sort of – Paul George isn't going to stay there beyond this year, right? If
I don't
Paul George
think
going to the
so.
Lakers.
I don't think – if Russ is gone, then he's gone. It's not like George goes, okay, now it's my team.
So you think Paul George stays in OKC if Russ stays in OKC?
Well, it's a much better chance. But everybody's going to say the right things now. I felt so bad for Thunder fans greeting Paul George and going, yeah, finally somebody that likes it here. And you're like, he's only going opt out. And he posts Durant.
Carmelo opts in for one more year. So do they trade him?
The Melo thing will be weird.
He's got the no trade that remains intact.
Right. That number's huge. And the only time you see a guy opt out of that is somebody goes, hey, let's take less of a hit on the annual so we save money year to year on this because you're not going to opt out and get the same kind of money if you're a free agent. I mean, that stuff has happened. Like Dwayne Wade opted out of his Heat deal, which I still to this day can't believe that he did. But that group still isn't good enough. I mean, that's actually what I respect, though, about some of these guys, okay? Because we have so many fan bases that have said, well, what's the point of doing this? You're not going to beat the Warriors. Right. Well, then if that's what we're doing, we can tell the other 29 GMs to just pack it up. Right. Like, these guys are competitive. So I respect Presti. I respect Daryl Morey. I respect that these guys go, okay, yes, on paper, I know I'm not the number one seed in the West. But what are we doing here? What's the job? The job is to try to get better. The job is to try to compete. And who knows? Maybe Golden State has that one significant injury. They thought they lost Durant at one point last year they thought when he got hurt against the Wizards that he was done. Durant thought he was done. Then what happens? Steph, basically, you can make an argument 2 years ago that him getting hurt against Houston, cost him a third ring. So I applaud these GMs for doing things. Nobody should be – every move should not be, does this move make us better than the Warriors? And I think –
unfortunately, it just kind of is, though.
Yeah,
right? I mean,
right.
it just kind of is.
But that's what I love about the Celtics. They're making a move to be good now and in the future.
That's impossible what they've done to add to it even more because, if Tatum turns out to be as good as I think he can be, that's a fourth guy with this team. And, obviously moving the pick was the big part about Kyrie. They have Kyrie under contract for a couple years. And so Ainge sets himself up, and they can, as you said, Goldie, they can reinvent this thing again on the fly in a couple years and strike back at it. And then who knows where LeBron even is? Who knows how good the rest of the East is? So I actually like the fact that the Celtics looked at this and said, right now, we're that much better than we were. And granted, like last year was a disaster in the Eastern Conference Finals, but they put themselves in a position to be competitive for a long time. When other teams are just totally bailing on wanting to be competitive because of who Golden State is.
Russillo's with us here with the Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contract.
All right, let's do a little Straight Talk on the NFL. We all saw what happened over the weekend with the president's tweets, how the players answered, how the league answered. So last night was the last night of this particular weekend, and you saw what the Cowboys did. If anybody didn't, what they did is they linked arms, went out on the field, and knelt down before the national anthem. By the time the flag came out and the national anthem was sung by Jordan Sparks, I believe, who I think sings 1,000 of those a year.
Yes.
They all stood. Yes. They all stood for the actual national anthem and when the flag was out. So Greeny asked it right this morning, right off the bat, and I'll ask you, what happens next? Where do we go now?
Yeah,